Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is creating unity through music, but as I like to say, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. Very excited today. We're doing another video podcast, and boy, just so feel privileged and honored to be able to talk with sort of a musical guru coach. She has, I think, lots of things that she does. Tara Divina, how are you doing?
I'm doing great and so happy to be here, and thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, sure thing. And you're in California, and so we're having a transcontinental conversation.
Absolutely. Love it.
Yeah. So you basically are a musician, but also sort of a coach, guru, shaman, thinker, lots of things. Could you describe just sort of briefly what you're up to these days?
Absolutely. I like to use the word multi-potentialite, which just describes some crazy person that likes to have lots of different things on their plate. So I have multiple businesses. I am a Vedic astrologer, which is an ancient Indian form of astrology. I'm a healing musician, and I work primarily in the shamanic healing spaces, in play music and meditative environments and circles. And then I'm also a coach for people who have businesses. Maybe they've hit a certain stride in their business, but they realize that they left all of their artistic talents on the table, and they're a musician or an author or whatever, a painter, some form of artist, and they wish to integrate that back into their business in a way that feels really seamless. And so they can have one brand and do one thing instead of feeling like they're all over the place.
That's really a great thing, because sometimes you do feel fragmented when you have your job and this and that, and you're maybe a musician and an artist, but also dog person, and there's so many facets. To kind of bring them together, that's a great thing if you can help folks with that.
Absolutely, and hopefully the synergy of bringing them together makes everything better. So if you're doing marketing for one thing, it's actually promoting the other. And so it makes everything a lot more easy to do.
That makes sense. I do have I don't really have a background in Vedic anything, but we were meditators going way back, with Maharishi, and he was into all kinds of Vedic things. And so I believe there's there. I don't know exactly what is there, but I think it's really great, and a very interesting pursuit you have.
Thank you. Yeah, Vedic astrology is fascinating stuff, and I really had no intention of ever learning it. It's an incredibly complicated, obtuse, and dare I say, frightening system of divination. And I really had no interest in astrology. It just found me, and it was one of those experiences of obsession, good, healthy obsession that came and grasped me. And I absolutely had to study and practice it, even though it didn't seem to make any real sense at the time, coming off the back of a career in the music industry.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great way to have anything happen, is it just grabs you and you have to do it, and you follow in your soul and your nose, and there you are. So I do like to kind of always ask this question: where did music come from in your life? I mean, I don't know whether your parents were musical, you took music lessons as a kid. I mean, you've got I think a couple albums now, and the music is really very profound and sort of uplifting. And so how did you get started with that? We all know it takes some effort to become a musician and to play music and write music.
Absolutely. Well, my mother sang in college, and my father had a flirtation with musicals, things like Gilbert and Sullivan. And he was a huge classical music aficionado. So growing up at a very young age, he would play songs on the classical radio station and ask me, is that Bach? Is that Mozart? Is that
Mm.
Beethoven? And so I learned to identify the composers by their sound from a super young age. And then naturally, they wanted me to study an instrument. So they kind of foisted me into piano lessons, which did not go well for me because I wasn't very into practicing or anything of that nature. But I did soak up through osmosis a lot of musical theory. And because I was so young, you know how it is learning something at a young age, it sinks in a different way. And so, despite the fact that I didn't like the lessons and rebelled against them, I still learned quite a bit. And eventually, they allowed me to switch into singing lessons, which were great. But again, there was always like something missing. Like I never thrived. I wanted to thrive, but I just couldn't quite ever get anywhere. And I remember, going to competitions and placing last consistently and just not feeling like a big success as a musician. And into my teens, I would write music, and all of my songs were about not being a musician, like a person that couldn't quite get where she wanted to go. And it was a very confusing experience of teenage angst, combined with a sense of purpose that didn't have its correct expression. And I then decided that the best answer was to go into the music industry, the corporate side, because surely that would get me to be a professional musician, which was, of course, the opposite happened. And I didn't touch an instrument or sing a note during my illustrious decade in the music business. But I did have quite a big career. I wound up as a vice president at the Warner Music Group before I
Wow.
was 30. And I was working in the industry at the time that everything was switching from analog to digital. So it was quite a wild time. I was really in the right place at the right time to have so much success. And so that continued until I walked into the office one day with my fantastic job and my amazing salary and all of my staff. And I walked into my office and thought, I'd rather be dead than come back into this office ever again.
Mm. Wow. Well, that's interesting. Why was that? It wasn't.
It wasn't creative. It was everything around creatives, everything. Like, were we even supporting the creatives? I'm not even sure. You know how it is with a major record label. Like, how much is the artist being supported versus siphoned from everything? It just felt like working in the circus, such a disorganized, bizarre mess, the music industry. And I never felt like I was making a difference or bettering anyone's life or contributing. And it was eating away at me. And so, really, without a plan, I I walked out of my career. And
Wow. Well, that's pretty brave, but it is a business. I mean, the music business is a business, and but well, you weren't playing guitar in the background at nights or anything like that. I mean, so
no,
how did it then come up that you
yeah. So
started playing?
I mean, I
What's the
got to the
next step?
point where I wouldn't even go to the amazing free shows that I was supposed to show up at to support our artists. Like, I couldn't even drag myself to another performance. I was just so deeply burnt out on a soul level, and was really confronting, honestly, the lack of spirituality in my life. And what happened was I was invited to go to a little festival called Burning Man,
Oh,
which is such a epicenter of artistic expression and originality and spirituality and all of it. And while I was there, I encountered people who were really living their purpose and following their soul's missions. And they were doing all sorts of crazy things, like had businesses to start world peace and optimism, and every single thing that they all started is now defunct. But at the time, I was really inspired by everything that they were up to, and it gave me a vision of something else that was possible. And so I set out on a spiritual quest to find my passion. And again, I had really very few clues, and I didn't even think to return to music yet because I didn't have a new way to approach it. But I did get captured by Vedic astrology. And then subsequently, I got captured by the world of shamanism. And through that world, I wound up experiencing some profound heart healing. And what I discovered is that it turns out that if you have access to your emotions, your musical creativity is a lot greater than if you don't. And
Makes
not only
sense.
and not only that, but I literally woke up one morning and opened my mouth to sing, and a different instrument came out. It was a completely different voice, which is the voice I sing with now, but I didn't have that voice beforehand. And so not only did I have this different voice, but I began creating music based on my higher self, my higher wisdom, my prayers, my desires, my intentions, my inquiries. And there was real depth and content to the music. And so it started to touch other people's hearts in ways that my songs about not making music didn't quite meet the mark. And there began to be a demand for the music as I shared it in these healing circles, and I became an official professional musician, being compensated actual money to play music live, and eventually raised money to record my first album, which went really, really well. And 5 years later, last year, I released my second album, which is almost complete. I have one more song coming.
Hmm.
And it's just been a wonderful journey of finding what was missing, which was really my own connection to my heart and my soul, which makes so much sense, but couldn't have been corrected any other way, really.
Yeah, everything you're saying makes complete sense because, sometimes when you're open, things can move in, and the spirit of music may have just slipped right in there. So Burning Man was profound for you, and Vedic astrology, which I've seen some of those charts, and they're pretty detailed and whatever. I don't know exactly what they mean always, as I said, but how did you? When did you pick back up instruments? Was it's singing mainly? Are you playing guitar too, or other instruments? Or
Both, and some percussion as well. But basically, I had an opportunity at these healing circles to share some music at the end, and so I would like learn a song and share it. And then one day a song came through that was original, and I shared that, and the rest is history. And so for the most part, I sing with guitar, but I also have a cappella songs as well.
very nice. Well, it's amazing. I find these stories of musical trajectories to be really really interesting and always profound because music is just so powerful. And that almost sounds trite to say, but it really is. So, how would you describe the power of music that sort of came to you or that you see? I mean, obviously, you're seeing music affect other people in your circles and what have you. What is that about? I mean, how do you describe it and capture it so other people kind of even know to look for it?
Well, in the context where I came up musically, in terms of the shamanic environment, right? Music is considered just as important as whatever other tools are being used, whether that's plant medicine or a shamanic guide or a soul retrieval. And music is considered the vehicle through which a lot of the healing can take place. And so these songs were inspired by those environments and are created, came through me in order for people to feel safe to have their healing. So a lot of my songs are about letting go, about diving into the unknown, about embracing grief, themes like that. And so people oftentimes listen to the music in times of deep heartbreak, big transitions, big moments where they really need that extra layer of support. And the music really allows them to feel loved, held, and understood. And that's really the kind of music that inspires me.
Well, it just inspires me too. How, how would you also describe to other people shamans? what shamans are, and are they men, women, musical? Um, I'm very interested in this, and what you have to say about what are shamans and what do they do.
I mean, a lot of people might have a different definition for you, and culturally speaking, shaman is a sensitive word. But in terms of
Hmm.
shamanic, my the definition I roll with is that it's somebody who can travel between realms to
Mm.
facilitate healing. And a lot of the shamanic plant medicines and the shamanic practices are all about connecting us to those other realms, connecting us to the infinite space where really anything is possible and more healing is available so that we can have profound and seemingly miraculous shifts and transformations in our life.
Wow. And what would be examples of different realms?
Well, really anything that's not this realm. There could be, there's all the different traditions have their own interpretations of what other realms are out there. And I think different medicines and different plants and different teachers, different systems expose us to the infinite multitude of worlds that we can experience. So it's tough to answer that question exactly or to describe something that one may never have seen before. But one of my favorite examples of another realm is there's this amazing book called Journey of Souls. And I'm forgetting the name of the author, but there's only one book by that title. And this book is all about this practitioner who hypnotized his patients to have past life regressions and memories of past lives. And he discovered that they would sometimes go in between lives. So before any lifetime had started and after one had ended, they would all describe this same place that they all went to. And it was always exactly the same. And they never had any knowledge of what the other one was describing. And so Journey of Souls is a story, a bunch of examples, stories of different people's memories of that realm. And I've had an experience of that realm myself actually before reading the book. And so when I read it, I thought, I've experienced that. I know that space. And during shamanic healing experiences, people generally have like a visceral memory of journeying somewhere. Like you go somewhere, and wherever you go, it's hard to describe.
Right. Could be, yeah, anything. Wow, that's very interesting. I've been talking with a friend of mine about musical shamans. I think I know a few. And so I'm also wondering, I wonder if I'm a musical shaman. You know, it's good to sort of be open to what might ever be out there. So, another thing I really like to ask, because it kind of gets to the heart of what we're trying to talk about, is so how do we humans kind of use music or allow music to help us create more peace and harmony in the world, or get us a little bit vibrationally balanced or something? And
Mm,
I'm sure this is kind of what you're doing, really. But I think music. You get in a car and you might be in a not such a great mood, and you turn on music, and there you are. You're a different person. And so, just societally, I think we can do that too, because there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. What would Do you have thoughts about that? I mean, how can we kind of make
yeah.
help make a better world with music?
Yeah, I mean, this philosophy, I believe, applies to all forms of art. Like, I believe all forms of art have the potential to be massively healing. I've had some really profound experiences with visionary paintings, and I think that art that is designed to raise consciousness, meaning open us to something, connect us to goodness, to beauty, to truth, all of that art serves as an upliftment, as an inspiration for us. And that when we're creating the music, let's say we want to, we're experiencing deep pain. We want to write a song about it. I can write a song that's just like, I'm in deep pain. listen to my pain. Don't you also have pain? Right. And it's like, okay, we might be able to commiserate over that pain, but is that truly healing and uplifting? Maybe not. But if I tune into, okay, what do I need right now? What is the message I most need to hear while I'm in pain? That would be the most uplifting, the most healing, the most helpful. And then I write a song or make a piece of art about that. To me, that's how to create art that truly elevates.
Wow. And I think that's a really great way to describe kind of the power of art and music. And you're sort of doing it. You're living the life, aren't you? It sounds like you're really enjoying what you're doing, and you're making a difference.
It's really rewarding, and I have a folder of all the messages I've received from people, strangers, people I know, etc., who have experienced the music touching them. And to me, that's my primary reason for recording it and making it. It's certainly not a profit center. To record music is generally a lost leader.
Right, right.
But it's so meaningful to me to know that the music has had an impact. And actually, my very favorite thing is when people report that they sang one of the songs in another ceremony, in another environment, um, all the way across the world. That's so exciting to me to see the songs travel and live their own best lives and touch more hearts.
Wow, that is really special. So, do you have sort of a theme or beliefs or intentions that maybe we haven't talked about or I haven't asked about that you see coming up that you'd really like to share with people?
Like a belief or intentions about.
Just what you're doing, things that you're doing that strike you. We've talked really briefly, but about a lot of interesting things that you're doing, and I don't want to not ask the right question. Having the right questions is not always, you don't always have the right questions, but just wondering in your practice, it's really a practice now, a spiritual shamanic practice, and other things that just might come up that you'd want to mention that I haven't talked about.
Well, one thing that I think is super relevant and very much in alignment with what we've already discussed is the idea of really finding our soul work and our purpose, because I think it's so deeply connected to many things. I think that the propensity to numb out, to have addictions, to pick fights with people in our lives, to create conflict, have drama, all of that is a symptom of not having something more important to us, more meaningful to us to pay attention to. And I know that for myself, that has absolutely been the case. Some of the most difficult years of my life were A, realizing that my purpose was not to be a record label executive,
Mm.
and B, the years where I had no idea what was next for me. It was so painful and so difficult not to have that. I think so many of us know that we want to find our purpose, and many of us don't even know. We just know something's off. And so I always love to gently remind people um, that we're all here for something, that we all have something, a unique fingerprint, a unique imprint to transmit. And I actually like to call that a core message, which is a message that we're basically emanating as our mission through our music, through our lyrics, through our song titles, through the work we do outside music, through our companies, through our jobs. That if we take a step back and look at what we're doing, there's a golden thread that weaves it all together. And that golden thread is our core message, which is our purpose, because our purpose isn't an activity, it's literally just an expression of who we are. Our purpose is to express ourselves, basically, to be creative in our own way. And by finding out our unique way of being creative, so many doors open, so much fulfillment is available, so much. And I just really wish that for everybody, which is why it's one of the key things that I tend to assist people with.
Wow, Tara, that is really great. And, you had said how you were sort of not feeling years ago your own purpose, what was going on. But I really do believe, I think, and the way you explained it was fabulous, because finding that purpose or mission is really critical to your own happiness. And the way you described it is sort of just your expression of yourself. People just get bogged down in their jobs and all kinds of things and cycles of grievance and everything else. And I think your point, since we're talking about music, really does apply to musicians and artists, but everybody. If you're kind of just playing on some instruments and doing gigs, and you can take that deeper and it will be better, is kind of what you're saying.
Absolutely. Well, and not only that, but people who have a core message or a big why, they tend to inspire other people a lot more. And so for musicians that are looking to be seen more, to be received more, to have a bigger audience, it's so important to know your core message, to express yourself in a deeper way. If all you can say is, here's my music, it's awesome, it's harder for people to connect into who you are. And we all want the whole package, which is not only the music itself, but the person behind the music. We're interested in that energy. And rarely does one get fully separated from the other. And so when I work with musicians, a lot of times the place we begin is, okay, what's your core message? What do you want to express? Like, what is it that you're already expressing that you could put more emphasis on that would allow your people to resonate with you and to know that you connect on this way of thinking?
Wow, that's really special. I think that's great, Tara. So I really appreciate this conversation. We could talk a lot longer. Hopefully we will again soon. But so if people want to find you, do you mind just telling them where they can do that? You have a website, I know, and all.
I do. The best place to find me is taradivina.com. And if you're interested in this work around life purpose and core message, I actually have a free course up there that you're welcome to help yourself to if you want to dive deeper. It's right there on the homepage, called Create and Flow.
I might do that.
Come on in. It's super fun.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of have an idea of the purpose, but you can always open it up and refine it or expand it or whatever.
Absolutely.
So, Tara, Divina, thank you very much for taking the time to talk about this kind of thing, and look forward to more connections. And just thank you very much.
My pleasure. And thank you so much for having me. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Tara Divina, everybody.